Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Sentinel Report. I'm your host, Alex Newman. Thanks so much for being with us on this beautiful day that the Lord has made. We've got a lot in the show for you today, including what's going on with the relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom and the ruthless persecution that's being meted out against political dissidents in the United Kingdom. We also have some great news about what's happening in Massachusetts. More and more kids leaving the government brainwash camps, and AI all up and down our government. Well, we've got a tech CEO joining us to explain the dangers of all that. Before we start, a word from the Word. This comes out of 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 3 through 5. The Bible reads, "For though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, or are not carnal, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ, being ready to punish every disobedience when your obedience is complete." Very good reminder for us there, folks. Take every thought captive. And I always tell people, I'm a gun guy too, but our weapons in this battle are not carnal, right? We're not going to shoot our way out of this mess, okay? It's a very different conflict. We're in the middle of a spiritual battle. And nowhere is that more clear than in the People's Republic of Illinois, Stan. They have an incredible new bill that aims to attack homeschoolers. Yeah, I wish I were kidding, right? We've got suicide, drug abuse, sexual depravity, gender confusion, illiteracy, violence reaching record levels in the government's indoctrination centers. And the leftist lawmakers and the fake media think homeschoolers are the one who need a big target on their back. Obviously, homeschoolers perform on average far better than the victims of government schools on literally every single metric, academic, social, etc. And they are preparing to fight back against this. It all began with a hit piece in a far left-wing outlet funded by George Soros and even that fraudster, the crypto fraudster Sam Bankman-Fried. And they said, oh, wow, every once in a while something bad happens to a homeschool kid, so we need a law. All right, forget the kids in the government school who are being sexually abused, brainwashed, sexualized, indoctrinated. We need to come after the homeschoolers. Now, you would think that in a normal place, this would have died on the vine. Instead, Illinois House Committee on Education actually passed this through a pretty lopsided vote. But the homeschoolers are getting ready to resist this. The private schools are getting ready to resist this. And folks, don't think that this is limited to Illinois. There is a concerted effort to bring government to bear on home education. And if we're not careful, it's going to happen all over the country. Now, Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, just spoke to Congress about global threats facing the United States. And U.S. Democrat Senator King threw a fit because climate change is not front and center. Check it out.
I want to move on. One note that surprised me, I've been on this committee now this is my 13th year. Every single one of these reports that we have had has mentioned global climate change as a significant national security threat, except this one. Has something happened? Has global climate change been solved? Why is that not in this report? And who made the decision that it should not be in the report when it's been in every one of the 11 prior reports?
I can't speak to the decisions made previously, but this annual threat assessment has been focused very directly on the threats that we deem most critical to the United States and our national security. Obviously, we're aware of occurrences within the environment and how they may impact operations, but we're focused on the direct threats to Americans' safety, well-being, and security.
Wow. Meanwhile, Senators Mike Lee of Utah and Josh Hawley of Missouri have new legislation that would curb the powers of federal district court judges to enact judicial orders against the executive branch. Lee's bill is called the Restraining Judicial Activists Act of 2025. And it's really the first serious effort in a long time to rein in the judicial branch. Thomas Jefferson, of course, warned us that the judicial branch would become an oligarchy if we weren't careful. And unfortunately, we're watching that. Here's what Senator Lee said. America's government cannot function if the legitimate orders of our commander-in-chief can be overridden at the whim of a single district court judge. We have seen them presumed to run the military, the civil service, foreign aid, and HR departments across the executive branch, blatantly unconstitutional overreach. And so this legislation, he says, is going to create a judicial panel to expedite Supreme Court review of these injunctions, preventing unelected radicals in robes from sabotaging the separation of powers. So we'll see where that goes, and we will keep you updated. Now, after the backlash over Bud Light's ridiculous partnership with the transgender guy, the company Anheuser-Busch, located in St. Louis, has pulled its support from the St. Louis Pride Fest after 30 years. Actually, quite encouraging, if you ask me. Now, the New American Magazine has a story about Missouri confiscating Chinese-owned farmland within the state in an effort to collect on its $24 billion civil judgment. A federal judge ruled in the state on March 7th that the Chinese regime covered up the start of the COVID-19 pandemic and even hoarded medical protective equipment that resulted in massive economic and individual harm to the state as a whole. And so now the communist regime in China owes big bucks to the state of Missouri. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey said this: China refused to show up to court, but that doesn't mean they get away with causing untold suffering and economic devastation. We intend to collect every penny by seizing Chinese-owned assets, including Missouri farmland. Now, Disney's new live-action adaptation of Snow White posted a dismal $43 million in its domestic debut, the lowest opening of any of the studio's live-action remakes, according to news reports. This comes after the leading actress Rachel Zegler posted a feminist, anti-man, ridiculous, absurd screeds on the internet. And of course, she was a vocal supporter of Kamala Harris. Surprise! They've got a 1.7 out of 10 ratings on IMDb, the biggest movie review site in the world. So you're not missing much by skipping this dumb production. Now, Irish mixed martial arts expert Conor McGregor is going to run for president in November 2025. He says he's going to oppose his government's participation in the EU and this participation in this pact to share asylum seekers around different member countries. Success for him would be further evidence, experts say, of the growing populist and right-wing revolt across so much of the Western world. McGregor said this. He said, Ireland must fully implement the EU Migration Pact by June 12, 2026. So between now and June 12, 2026, several pieces of legislation have to be passed by both houses of the parliament and then signed by the president. The next presidential election must take place by 11th of November, 2025. Who else will stand up to the government and oppose this bill? We'll keep you updated again on that, and we'll let you listen to his comments.
Here to raise the issues that people of Ireland face, you know, and it'll be music to the people of Ireland's ears, because never on the main stage has the issues the people of Ireland face been spoke. You know, our government has long since abandoned the voices of the people of Ireland, and it's high time that America is made aware of what is going on in Ireland. What is going on in Ireland is a travesty. Our government is the government of zero action with zero accountability. You know, our money is being spent on overseas issues that has nothing to do with the Irish people. The illegal immigration racket is running ravage on the country. There are rural towns in Ireland that have been overrun in one swoop, that have become a minority in one swoop. So issues need to be addressed. And the 40 million Irish Americans, as I said, need to hear this, because if not, there will be no place to come home and visit.
Amazing. Now, Barry Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams returned to Earth last week on a SpaceX aircraft after their 9-month stay, unplanned, by the way, on the International Space Station. And Barry had some really interesting things to say when he was asked about what motivates him. Check this out.
We're all the product of our life experiences, and this extended business trip of yours certainly qualifies. What is your life lesson or takeaway from these 9 months in space?
Well, in answer to your question, I can tell you honestly, my feeling on all of this goes back to my faith. It's bound in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He is working out his plan and his purposes for his glory throughout all of humanity, and how that plays into our lives is significant and important. And however that plays out, and I am content because I understand that. I understand that he's at work in all things. Some things are for the good. Go to Hebrews chapter 11. Some things look to us to be not so good, but it's all working out for his good for those that will believe. And that's the answer. So thanks for asking.
Now, folks, going back to the JFK files, Grok, the Elon Musk's AI system, looked at all these documents. Obviously, no human has had time to go through 83 pages of this. But what Grok said was really interesting. It said the 31,419 pages reframed the JFK assassination as a multifaceted conspiracy involving the CIA, Mafia, Secret Service, Soviet-Cuban elements, and potentially LBJ himself, with Oswald as a funded patsy rather than a lone gunman. Wow. And there is so much more, folks. Truly incredible, the things that AI is going to be able to help us do. And speaking of AI, there's a new study. It seems to be the first one ever done by Grok 3. The study was peer-reviewed, published in the Science of Climate Change journal, doing a reassessment of the hypothesis that CO2 is driving global warming, human emissions of CO2. And folks, this study was done by AI. The press release was written by AI. And we've got an article about it over at libertysentinel.org. So go check it out. Really, really important. And this was interesting. Parenthood, it turns out, is linked to a lower cognitive decline with age. It turns out parents of children end up having their brains working better long into the future, according to this new study. It was published in PNAS, and it found that parents have these better brain connections compared with adults who did not have children. Maybe having kids strengthens your brain. Who knows? God did call children a blessing, and we should take that seriously. Now, we've got a woman facing potentially life-threatening complications after an abortionist left behind half of her dead baby in her womb. That's according to a lawsuit that's getting a lot of play. It was an Illinois abortion clinic, and we'll see what happens with the lawsuit. The doctor being sued here is Dr. Keith Ressinger Kindle and the Equity Clinic. They killed this 22-week-old baby by dismembering him, but forgot to take out half of the victim's body. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, abortion clinics are very unregulated in Illinois, unlike what they want to do to homeschoolers, but terrible, terrible, terrible. Now, we've got Germany destroying its most advanced coal-fired power plant after just 6 years in operation. You can see this process on the video right now. Supposedly, this is going to save humanity from global warming. Meanwhile, the Chinese Communist Party is bringing 2 new power plants online every single week, fired by coal. Germany, interestingly, produces now less energy than it did in 1990. Folks, before we go to break, I want to tell you about our good friends over at qpgoatsoap.com. They make it's a family farm. They've got goats, and they make this wonderful soap. I don't go anywhere without it now. It's with all natural ingredients, things like essential oils, and of course goat milk. This stuff is awesome. They even have a Liberty Sentinel pack, and when you use the promo code Newman, you're going to get a very nice discount on that. So try it out. I bet you're going to like it. We love it here. Everybody in my family now uses only this. And I also want to encourage you to get over to classicalconversations.com/LSM. That's where I have my children enrolled for homeschooling. It's a great, great program. And I want you to stay tuned because we're going to be right back after these quick messages with more here on the Sentinel Report.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Welcome to the Sentinel Report. I am Alex Newman, your host. Thanks so much for being with us, folks. We have a very special guest joining us today, a tech CEO, but not the bad kind, okay? And he's got an excellent new op-ed in Newsweek, and we won't hold that against him. I've been published in Newsweek as well. It's it's moving in the right direction. We'll say that, despite the history, right? And he's got some concerns about what DOGE is doing. I mean, obviously, we're all happy to see the waste and the fraud and the abuse being exposed. But then there's the AI component that I think we need to have a chat about. And I can't think of anybody better to break this down for us than our guest, Jeff Dornik. He is the founder of Pickax.com. It's an up-and-coming new social media platform. Jeff is a free speech activist. He's the host of the excellent Jeff Dornik Show. Jeff, thank you very much for joining us. Talk to us about your concerns with DOGE and this move toward using AI for more and more things that maybe AI should not be used for.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, especially with DOGE, like you said, I'm all for exposing waste and fraud and all of that. But then you start hearing about, okay, well, Elon's using large language models and artificial intelligence to analyze basically all the roles in the federal government, and that was the key, and that's the thing that wasn't talked about a lot when it came to that email that Elon sent out to all of the federal employees, asking, list the 5 things you've done this last week, and that he was taking the information, according to all the reports that I saw, plugging it into an LLM model, artificial intelligence, to analyze all these different jobs. And, from everybody that I've been talking to that are inside circles within the Trump community and, all of that, what they're doing is they're analyzing all of these jobs to see, okay, what can be streamlined with artificial intelligence? And I've got a major concern with that, because if we start eliminating jobs in the federal government and taking it from human beings over to artificial intelligence, now all of a sudden we're eliminating a lot of the checks and balances that our founding fathers established for us. Our founding fathers established our government to be a self-governing system where it's people, it's the United States American citizens that are actually governing ourselves. And so when we look at that, it's like that's all a part of the checks and balances. So that way, if there's an employee, a federal employee, that's asked to do something that's unconstitutional, they could become a whistleblower. Somebody else, a different department does checks and balances over different departments. But if all of a sudden it's all technology, who do you hold responsible if that technology decides that the best thing to do is to violate your constitutional rights, or to target somebody, or to be biased based upon whoever is in charge of the government? There is no such thing as a completely neutral artificial intelligence. It always has biases based upon whoever coded it. And so if you're looking at that, think about how much power, let's say, the next administration have. Let's say it's a bunch of Democrats that are trying to centralize power and push globalism. Think about how much power they'll have if they don't have to convince an employee to do something. They can just code a computer program to violate our constitutional rights. What recourse do we have if our rights are violated by artificial intelligence?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jeff. And I think a lot of people who are super enthusiastic about AI haven't fully thought through all the implications. Because I'm enthusiastic about some of what AI is doing, but these risks are very real. And Elon Musk himself has talked about this. Who programmed ChatGPT to think it was better to blow up the world with thermonuclear war than misgender Caitlyn Jenner? Like, these kinds of lunatics might be programming the AI that's going to make really important decisions about government and about your life. Jeff, you had a wonderful panel discussion just a few weeks ago when you launched Pickax. Senator Ron Johnson was there. I was blessed to be a part of that. And you had some really, really insightful minds talking about these issues. And one of the things that came up was, positive uses of AI. So to kind of balance this out, do you see any kind of useful and legitimate role for AI in the federal government, or is this just taboo, off limits?
No, I'm all for using AI, especially for research purposes, to analyze a lot of data that standard computing or individual people would take days, weeks, months in order to do. Like, there's definitely ways of incorporating AI without violating anybody's rights or doing anything like that. The problem that I have, it seems like the trend that we're heading in is that we're basically giving all the power to whoever the programmers are, or let's say the government, where what they're going to be doing is eliminating a lot of people, and then just only having a handful of people that are making the decisions. And so when we're looking at the government use of AI, obviously I think I can see a lot of military applications, for war strategy, all of that. I can see a lot of data analytics. I can see a lot of positive uses from that standpoint. But if we're going to start getting into where artificial intelligence is now making decisions, or looking at the application of interpreting the law, or pushing a particular agenda from the government, that's where we start getting into a bigger problem. Like think about it. We had the IRS that was targeting conservative groups not that long ago. We've had the FBI that have been going after Trump supporters around the country, and January 6th people and all that kind of stuff. Think about the kind of power that they would have if all of a sudden they had the power of AI that's biased to be able to push a particular agenda or accomplish a certain goal. And that's what's doing all the investigations. That's what's making the decisions on whether somebody gets prosecuted or not, or whether somebody gets investigated or not. That is where we really get into the problem.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Now, shifting gears a little bit, I want to get into this free speech discussion. Obviously, the winds have changed in Washington, D.C. and Silicon Valley, and now suddenly all the big tech CEOs are, oh, we like Trump. Oh, we support free speech. One of them, of course, is the little former fascist, or at least pretend former fascist, who runs Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. I want to play a clip of him saying what's going to allegedly happen with Facebook, and then we'll come back and get your response.
Hey everyone. I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech.
Yeah, I'll say my Facebook account actually got deleted and shut down after I said that I thought the 2020 election was fraudulent. They demanded that I send in my ID if I wanted to appeal, and I refused, and eventually they reinstated my account a few months later. But I don't know about you, Jeff. I don't trust Mark Zuckerberg as far as I could throw him. What say you? Is Facebook really moving in a better direction?
No, not at all. And here's why. Here's what's really happening. If you notice, in both when he went on Joe Rogan's podcast as well as that announcement, he never actually took responsibility for anything. It was, well, our models made some mistakes. You know, some people got kind of wrapped up in all the censorship of all the illegal stuff. It's like, no, your policy, your terms and conditions, your terms of use was faulty and wrong. Like, you were banning people for questioning the COVID narratives. You're banning people for questioning, election integrity. And so when you're looking at it from that perspective, it wasn't that the procedures went rogue and that the systems went rogue and where people kind of got caught up in censorship. No, it was their policies, and he never took responsibility for that. He also blamed the intelligence agencies and the Biden administration for yelling and swearing at his people to censor people and kick people off. It's like, no, take responsibility. It was written into your policies. That's where the problem lies. And if you don't fix that, that's a major problem. And so when we're looking at the future, to me, I feel like what he's doing is he's creating a scapegoat of just technology gone rogue, not taking any responsibility, blaming everybody else. And then we're supposed to trust that he's going to actually defend free speech moving into the future, which is really concerning when you start looking at a lot of their investments that they have heading into artificial intelligence. They're investing like $65 billion into AI for the purpose of having AI generated content creators that they control, so that, guess what? They don't need human beings to be influencers anymore. Now they just have their own AI generated avatars.
Yeah, it's so creepy. And then when you go back a little bit in time and you look at the formation of Facebook, you look at the involvement of some of the key people from In-Q-Tel, the investment arm of the intelligence community. I don't think we're being told the whole story here. And by the way, just a little anecdote, fun fact or not so fun fact, they're still censoring us. By the way, a couple weeks ago, they wouldn't even let us buy an ad to promote my new book. So, folks, Facebook has not restored free speech, contrary to what Zuckerberg would like you to believe. And I think that's one of the reasons, Jeff, why you decided that we needed an alternative, and you're working on that. Pickax.com. I've already set up an account. It's a great place. Talk to us a little bit about Pickax. Why did you decide to do it? How do people get to it, and what will they find there?
Yeah, well, I felt like there wasn't a truly free speech social media platform that was doing it right. Even when Elon bought X, he said it's going to be free speech, but they write into the policies freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach, which means that they'll let you say what you want, but that doesn't mean that they'll let anybody to actually see it. And so I'm like, well, that's not fair. If you earn an audience, your audience should actually see it. And so we built out Pickax to be a constitutionally protected free speech social media platform. If it's legal, you're allowed to say it. The only thing we ban are illegal activity and pornography, because you're not allowed to have sex in the middle of your town squares. So why would we allow you to do that on the digital town square? So, that kind of stuff. But as long as it's free speech, you're allowed to say it. And so what we're doing is we're really leaning heavily into helping people to have access to their audience, monetize their content. We're going to be rolling out an app here in the next couple of months. We're also going to be rolling out some really cool new features, some email newsletter stuff, some more integrations into Rumble and Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and just make life easier for content creators and also for users, if you're not a creator, to follow your favorite people, interact with them, engage with them, and actually be seen and not weeded out by all these crazy algorithms and all that. So, and also too, we're not collecting your data. We don't need your data in order to target ads. So we have a whole innovative new way of targeting ads without having to collect your data and stalk you across the entire internet. It's really innovative, but nobody else is doing it. And so we're doing this. We want to bring back free speech the way that our founding fathers intended.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I'll tell you what, the time that I've spent on the platform has been well spent. You guys are doing great work. And Jeff, you have an excellent show, the Jeff Dornik Show. Where can people find you on there?
Yeah, just look up the Jeff Dornik Show on any of the platforms except for YouTube because we're banned on there still.
You're a good company.
Exactly. Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, but also just follow me on Pickax, pickax.com/Jeff Dornik. And then this weekend as well, I'm going to be speaking at the Summit for Truth and Wellness in Rochester, New York. You guys can live stream that. So go to pickax.com. We're going to pin it to the top. And so where you just go to the website, you can live stream, watch that. Dr. Pierre Corey, Mary Holland, a whole bunch of amazing speakers there as well. So I'll be speaking there as well.
Excellent. Well, Jeff, thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for putting your money where your mouth is and actually doing something about these problems. We appreciate you coming on. God willing, we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, stay with us. We're going to be right back after these quick messages from our sponsors.
In 1776, a nation was born. Forged in the crucible of revolution, brave men and women stood together fighting for freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. Introducing Patriot Mobile, the wireless carrier that stands with you. We are committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile. For free activation, use promo code Newman.
Welcome, folks. Alex Newman here with the Sentinel Report. We're so glad you are with us. We have a very special guest today to talk about what's going on in Massachusetts, folks. I know you're thinking like, wow, he must be behind enemy lines, sort of. But great things are happening there. And if they can do stuff like this in Massachusetts, we can do it anywhere. So our guest is Michael King. He is the president of the Massachusetts Family Institute. They are a powerhouse there, despite being in deep blue territory. If you're not familiar with the Massachusetts Family Institute, it's part of the Family Policy Council. They've got a network across the country of 40 family policy councils, and they're doing incredible work on life issues, on family, on religious liberty, and so many other things. Now, I love most of these groups. They're all doing really great work, but Michael's in particular is doing something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is they are helping families get children out of the government schools and into legitimate education alternatives. They call them church-based learning centers. And Michael's got a big conference coming up very soon. Michael, welcome to the program. Thanks for being with us. Tell us the latest on what's going on in Massachusetts with the church-based learning centers before we talk about the conference.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. We're about 3 years into this now. Last year, we had about 15 church-based learning centers with about 10 in the pipeline. Now we have over 20 with about 15 in the pipeline, serving over 600 students. These are, as you mentioned, church-based learning centers, ministries of churches. We thought, look, churches have two things. They have affordable and available space during the week that, never gets used, as we all know. And then they also have these great networks of volunteers that are, really used to volunteering. So what better model than to ask the local church, hey, let's do homeschool co-ops, but let's just do them, let's expand that vision to 3, 4, 5 days a week. And so now we have some church-based learning centers in Massachusetts that are offering K-12 education, actually K through 14th grade. If you want, I can explain more about that. And doing it for as low as $100 a month for 5 days a week. So very excited to be offering affordable K through 14th grade in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and one of the things that I am most excited about, Michael, and you and I have talked about this quite a few times, is that you guys are doing it all without government money, right? You've got a lot of people who say, oh, we can only do it if the government funds our operations. And yet you guys, I mean, obviously Massachusetts is not going to be funding conservative Christian education. So you guys are proving that this can be done without government involvement, using only the resources of Christians and the churches and donors. Talk to us about the model for how this works out financially.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, this is parent directed. These are home expanded versions of homeschool co-ops, and then it's done without government money. So 2 years ago, we met with the Children's Scholarship Fund, and they were very excited about what we were doing in Massachusetts. So they said, look, we'll offer you a $75,000 matching gift program, of which we've taken advantage of this year. And that $75,000 matching gift can go a long, long way if you're only paying $100 a month for K-12 education. So really, we've been able to, like I said, bring this price down to $100 a month or less. One of these learning centers actually does it for $500 per family per year. And so really, to like you said, bypass not only the financial hurdles, but the legislative hurdles here in Massachusetts, and do it really through the local church, we think this is really the ideal model. It can be started quickly. Not a lot of red tape in Massachusetts. It wouldn't surprise you, Alex, that you have to get local approval from your school committee in order to start a school. So that's another reason why we tell these churches, look, don't start a school. Don't start another $5,000 a year school that not as many people can afford, but start a expansion of a homeschool co-op that we call a church-based learning center.
Yeah, it's just fantastic, Michael. I love the creativity and the problem solving, even in a state like Massachusetts, folks. So don't tell me you can't do this in Oklahoma or South Carolina or Idaho or Montana. Michael, is there a way for people to get information about this on your website, just to see how they might be able to replicate it in their own state?
Sure. You can go on our website, mafamily.org, mafamily.org, and go to our resources tab there and go to education resources. You can also text the word school option, all one word, school option, to our short code 87891. So text school option to 87891 for more information.
That's fantastic. And Michael, I probably neglect this a little bit, but I'm glad you guys are on the case. And I get told this a lot. Well, we can't forget about the kids in the government brainwash. I mean, the public schools, sorry. And I said, oh, you're right. We don't want to forget about them. These are people too. And even if their parents made a bad decision, we still need to be there for them, fighting for them. And you guys are doing that at MFI. You guys have actually been successful working with some of your local school committees in passing, actually unanimously, I guess, a safety in women's sports policy. You've gotten one school committee to do an opt-in sex ed policy, where if they want to sexualize the kids, the parents have to actively give their consent. You got a no political bias policy, removing some of this LGBTQP whatever and BLM stuff, the flags. Talk to us about the work you guys are doing with these local school committees and the successes that you're having there, which I think are very impressive in a place like Massachusetts.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, Alex, we're trying to create these institutions to, get kids out of give them a affordable opportunity outside of the public school. But we can't forget about, the 70% or so of our kids that are still in the public schools. And so that's why we've chosen to work with school committees and affect schools in that regard. So as you mentioned, one of the school committees here in on the Rhode Island border, 10-0, as you mentioned, unanimously passed a policy at the school committee level, safety in women's sports, that gives the coach and the players the ability to forfeit a game. So they passed that last spring. They followed through with it this fall, forfeited 2 games where there was a male player on the other team. Coincidentally, that other team that had the male player went on to win the conference. No surprise there. But yeah, you also mentioned no political bias. So, seeing pride flags as a political emblem and saying, look, we don't want politics in our schools. And so effectively that policy, got rid of all pride flags, for example, in the schools. I just learned about another Massachusetts school district that got rid of all the pride flags as well. So look, I mean, this kind of stuff is happening in Massachusetts. You mentioned an opt-in to sex ed. Which, again, a great policy where it really tells you just how many parents really want comprehensive sex education. Let them opt into it. And so we're happy to see a school committee leading the way on that. I mentioned to you on an earlier program that we had 4,000 students opt out of sex ed just in the school district of Worcester. And we're seeing this opt out across the state, but it's great to see school committees now having an opt in to sex ed policy as well.
Yeah, that's super encouraging. And again, folks, this is Massachusetts we're talking about here. Okay, so this is
right.
a lot bigger than it seems to those of you sitting safely in your red county, in your red city, in your red state. This is big. Now, you guys are also working on exposing and stopping Title IX violations. You guys are encouraging parents across the state to file these complaints. Talk to us about that and some of the results you're seeing.
Yeah, well, look, Alex, how refreshing is it to have a president that passes executive orders that says we'll take away federal funding if you're violating Title IX, and then also if you have woke ideology, you know, the gender stuff, the CRT stuff, the DEI stuff. So, of course, in Massachusetts, we always say this state is target rich when it comes to these violations. So happy to announce that the MIAA, the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association, is now under investigation by the OCR, the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Education. So very, happy that these kinds of investigations are happening. Obviously, our hope is that, that federal funds will be pulled from school districts if they're still violating these executive orders. So we have parents now that are filing complaints with the OCR. Our new Massachusetts Liberty Legal Center is now helping these parents file those complaints at the OCR. We just had a father who was a coach file a complaint because his daughter had her knuckles broken. We also had another story out of Dighton Rehoboth last year where a girl got her teeth knocked out in a field hockey game. So we're happy now to see parents, being inspired by the work that we're doing through our Massachusetts Liberty Legal Center, as well as the president through the Department of Education, or I guess the lack of the Department of Education. But anyway, the Office of Civil Rights is still operating and investigating the MIAA and hopefully more school districts here in Massachusetts.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then you've got two big conferences coming up, Michael. You've got the one in Massachusetts, and some people will see this before, some people will see it after, but that's coming up on March 31st, Monday, March 31st. A lot of you are probably watching us on March 31st. And then you've got another one. This is really for education leaders coming up in November 12th and 13th. Talk to us a little bit about that, the annual Reclaiming Education Conference.
Yeah, so this is our second annual Reclaiming Education Conference here in Massachusetts. As you mentioned, coming up in less than a week. We are now sold out a week ahead of the conference, which I think just goes to show the amount of interest. We have over 100 people coming from over 50 different towns and cities in Massachusetts wanting to start, a church-based learning center. We have leaders from learning centers come to tell their stories, students coming to tell testimonies about how these learning centers have changed their lives. And then, we're promoting this idea. We have the largest church-based learning center network here in Massachusetts. We're promoting this to the nation. As you mentioned, even in red states, right? Why can't we do this in every church in the United States? And so we're having our second annual National Reclaiming Education Conference at the Herzog Foundation in November. You came to our first one, of course, and we're excited to have, many more people. I think we had 50 people from 25 different states come to the first National Reclaiming Education Conference at the Herzog Foundation. And we're so thrilled to be partnering with them again for the second annual National Reclaiming Education Conference.
Yeah, this is huge, folks. And again, if they could do it in Massachusetts, you can do it where you're at. And if you were watching our program last week, you saw George Barna on here talking about the catastrophic decline in biblical worldview among even church members and pastors and parents. And what he said was focus on the children. We've got to focus on the children. We need the churches to focus on the children. Folks, here is a tangible way that your church can do that right now. So get involved somehow. Michael, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you guys or their own family policy council organization in their own state?
Yeah, so there's 40 family policy councils across the nation in 40 different states. So I just encourage you to Google Family Policy Council in your state if you want to find out what's going on. We all focus on life, liberty, First Amendment issues, the family, education. And then to learn more about what's going on in Massachusetts, how you can start a church-based learning center at your local church, just text the word school option, all one word, school option, to our short code 87891.
Excellent. Folks, I hope that this has inspired you. I hope you will keep Michael and his team at the Massachusetts Family Institute in prayer. Obviously, they have some opposition where they're at. But Michael, thank you so much for what you're doing. Really appreciate you coming on the program. God bless you, sir. And I hope we can talk to you again very soon.
Thanks so much, Alex. So great to be with you.
Absolutely. All righty, folks. Stay with us. We're going to be right back here on the Sentinel Report after these quick messages from our sponsors.
We're living in World War III, an all-out attack against the Christian church, the Christian faith, and families everywhere. With over 80% of professing Christian teens abandoning the faith by their early 20s, it's clear we're in a spiritual battle for our very lives, and those of every generation after us. Hosea 4:6 says, "My people perish from lack of knowledge." That's why GTI created our new You Are What You Think Biblical Worldview package combining short video teachings along with textbooks, all designed to equip you and your family to discern the good ideas from the evil. Enjoy vibrant discussions over the critical issues of the day using the Bible as your guide. Go to gtimin.com, click the blue banner at the top, and enter the coupon code Newman at the checkout to receive this powerful series for only $99. That's gtimin.com, click the banner at the top, and enter the coupon code Newman at the checkout. Or purchase it directly from libertysentinel.org.
Welcome, folks, to the Sentinel Report with your host, Alex Newman. That's me. We have a very special guest joining us from the other side of the pond. His name is Peter McIlvenna. He's been a guest here before. He's the director and host of Hearts of Oak, an incredible podcast. You can find it on Bannon's War Room and other places. He also does a lot of other things. He served as chief of staff to Lord Pearson of Rannoch in the House of Lords for over 10 years, and he is really an expert on all things politics when it comes to the European Union and the EU and the UK. Incredible insight. Peter, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Alex. I hope I can live up to your introduction there, but always good to be with you.
It's fantastic, and you always do. That's why we keep bringing you back. Now, I some of the stuff that's happening in the UK right now is, I think, very difficult for Americans to comprehend. And these two stories are interrelated. I want to talk about the political prisoner, Tommy Robinson, who's, of course, still locked up in the gulag being mistreated despite pretty significant efforts to get him out. But I want to start with the illegal boat migration, which, you know, the UK government has been given some tough talk. These left-wingers, oh, you better stop. And yet it is now, I guess, at record levels despite this tough talk. What's going on?
So whenever the Labour Party got into power, as in the government on the left, our new socialist government, back in August last year, they talked about clamping down on the boats coming over. And of course, that little bit of water between France and England, the English Channel, is, I think, the busiest sea passage in the world. Very small, extremely busy, and of course the UK is an island, so we rely on shipping coming back and forward for goods coming over from Europe, and it's always been a hotspot for people coming over in small boats. But over the last 5 years of our so-called conservative government, that really ramped up, and it went up to around 45,000 a year were coming over in the boats, and each year it was going up by about 50%. And the issue is, in the European Union, whenever a migrant arrives in the European Union, they must seek refuge in the first safe country, and the European Union must actually keep them in the first safe country. The problem is these individuals come over some of them, from areas that are in war. So they could be coming from Syria, they could be coming from Lebanon, they could be coming from parts of Africa, but it's by and large economic migration. I think I've seen a figure 85 to 90% is economic. So they pay people traffickers all the way through Europe. They don't stay in Greece, they don't stay in Italy, they don't stay in Germany, they don't stay in France. They all are desperate to get to the UK. And sadly, we have a tax policy. We have a very friendly migrant policy. So when you arrive, you get housed in a hotel more or less instantly, and you can stay there for as long as you like. And then you apply for asylum. And if that is rejected, then you can appeal. and the British government will pay you to appeal against the British government. That's how mad this situation is. And we've had people who've been in the country illegally. We have looked to deport as Hearts of Oak, and they were able to raise millions of pounds from taxpayers' money to fight against that. So the Labour government, in a nutshell, they promised to tackle this and clamp down on the people trafficking across Europe and into the UK. But the figure today was that 30,000 have come over, and that is about 15-20% up on the last year. So it seems as though it's continuing. And sadly, it's the individuals who lose out because they have to raise huge amounts of money. And then you don't know what happens to those people when they get in the UK because they just disappear. They're not tagged and held. No, they're just put in a hotel. And I've gone to film in some of these hotels around Heathrow Airport, and they can come and go as they want. No restrictions at all. And the problem is many of them disappear into the country. And if children come over, they disappear. And is that into the sex industry? Is that into the drug trafficking industry? We simply do not know. And we have the same problem as you had on your southern border prior to Tom Holman being put in charge. And we need a Tom Holman here in the UK.
Yeah, it really is amazing. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this is a national suicide aided and abetted by the government. And I was living in Sweden when this kind of madness was happening in Sweden. And what really struck me was the number of fighting-aged men, right? And I'm thinking to myself, if I was fleeing a war, the first thing I would do is grab my wife, grab my daughters, grab my sister. And the idea of leaving a war zone on my own and leaving my women and children is so utterly inconceivable that nobody can seriously believe that this is what we're being told it is. And then they started saying, it wasn't so much humanitarian, it was economic. We need these people to pay taxes so we can pay the pensions. I think they're just lying to us. And very, very strange. But Peter, one guy who's done a lot of speaking out on this issue, like him or hate him, is Tommy Robinson. He's been sounding the alarm. He's been calling on the British government to take seriously this issue. And he released a documentary, a form of free speech, and he was locked up, and he's still locked up. Elon Musk has been trying to break him out, I guess, but that has been unsuccessful. And I understand he's being terribly mistreated in this facility that is holding him. What's the latest on this, Peter?
So the latest is Tommy has now spent 145 days, as I'm with you, in solitary confinement. And the government, Lord Pearson, has put down questions on this, asking about his treatment on solitary confinement. And the British government say, oh, there's no such thing as solitary confinement. It's restricted access, or they come up with other terminology for it. But in effect, he has been held for 22 hours in a cell, doesn't see anyone on that day, and then has 2 hours in the gym. I went to see him in middle of January with Gerard Batten, former member of the European Parliament and former leader of UKIP. And we went to visit Tommy and spent 2 hours with him. I had to sign an NDA, so I couldn't talk about anything that I saw, but I know from talking to many other people, and Tommy is held there. He is allowed visitors during the week. And if he has a visitor to come and see him 3 times a week, then he has 2 hours with that visitor. The problem is the governor of the prison, she is cancelling those visits at last minute. She cancelled them the evening before. So on a week where he may have 3 slots for visitors, he could have 2 out of those 3 cancelled, or even all 3 cancelled. He's even had visits from family cancelled, and even had restrictions on his phone access, talking to his family. And the prison, the government say he's in solitary confinement for his own safety. Well, if you put him in a prison that's 35% Muslim, Tommy is one of the most vocal against the Islamization that we face in the UK, how it treats women, and how it treats those who are not Muslims, and how it encroaches upon an area in terms of its food, in terms of its legal system, in terms of its schooling system, and consumes that area. That is what we face. And Tommy has spoken up about this for 20 years, and about the grooming gangs, the Muslim rape gangs that we have had since the mid-70s at least. Tommy's been vocal on this, and because of that, he's become an enemy of the state. And the title of his first book, his biography, is Enemy of the State. And he really is an enemy of the state. He's a thorn in the side because he talks about our establishment turning a blind eye to immigration, turning a blind eye to these Muslim rape gangs. And he's in prison. You may think, well, he's in a top security prison. He's in a category B prison, but in the containment wing, so only for the most dangerous rapists, murderers, terrorists. Tommy is in there for showing a film. He's a category D, he's a civil prisoner, and he's in the most closely supervised area in a category B prison because he showed a film. That is the state of British justice. Thank God for Elon Musk. And I know, Alex, I share many of your concerns about Elon Musk and the whole march towards transhumanism. But in this area, Elon Musk has highlighted Tommy Robinson being in jail from the 1st of January, has called on Tommy to be released, and has made Tommy the most famous political prisoner in the world, I think. And Tommy is certainly not perfect. And you said at the beginning, you may like him or hate him. He's a Marmite figure. Marmite is a spread that we have on bread. And you talk about you either love it or hate it. It's an expression. And he's certainly very much like that, a Marmite figure. But yet he is speaking up for these girls. He's speaking up for communities that are abandoned. And he is, until the end of middle of July, I think, he's going to be held 18 months in prison for showing a film, solitary confinement with little access to the public. But in this case, thank God that Elon Musk is actually funding his legal cases to push back against freedom. He lost the first case on Thursday last week. I think it was Thursday last week. He's got an appeal on the 11th of April, and that is against his being held in solitary confinement. So, Alex, your viewers, please pray for him. Pray that actually he is released. And pray that he becomes a Christian. He is spending time with a chaplain in there, reading the Gospels together. So who knows what the enemy meant for evil, God turns to good. And let's pray that actually God turns to good Tommy's time in prison and he actually comes to Christ.
Absolutely. And even just the extra awareness and scrutiny this is bringing, I think, despite the sacrifices that Tommy is enduring right now, it's going to be good for the British people and the nation of Britain over the long term, because as people see this kind of brutal treatment of political prisoners for speaking against policy, I think there's going to have to be a reckoning. And we've seen this more and more. I mean, people being arrested for praying silently outside of abortion clinics, people being arrested for preaching on the streets. As far as I'm concerned, Britain is no longer a free country. I know America owes a great debt of gratitude to our ancestors. You know, you guys gave us the Magna Carta and elected parliament and all these kinds of things. And we're grateful for that. But what is there now is almost unrecognizable. Continuing on this theme of crazy political persecution in the UK, you've now got the top teachers union calling on schools to brand Nigel Farage, relatively moderate guy, I mean, just doesn't like the globalism and the open borders, as a far right racist. What is going on with this, Peter?
It's bonkers. Now, Nigel has been in the crosshairs from our establishment for a long time. He's also a figure like Tommy that you either like him or loathe him. And Nigel, of course, for 25 years fought for Brexit, for freedom from the European Union. And we wouldn't have Brexit if it wasn't for Nigel. And he now leads the Reform Party. They're doing very well in the opinion polls. They're polling top, the last polls I saw. But of course, where there is success, there is jealousy, and that's partially where this comes from. And then this teachers union talking about Nigel being an extremist, racist, and they must brand him as that. And Alex, as you said, Nigel is fairly center off the road. He's not really a social conservative. He's not a Christian. He's not pro-life. He has concern of mass immigration, but he doesn't want to engage on Islam and that clash between Islam and the freedoms we have in the West. He's not necessarily pushing for the traditional family like you have in Hungary with their fantastic tax policies promoting a man and woman and children. Actually, Nigel is not necessarily pushing that. So it's strange because he's not one of these AFD or Freedom Party or Gert Wilders or Viktor Orban that the media try and brand as some extremist. He is fairly middle of the road, and yet he's been attacked by this group. And it's what you get in politics. You know, it's like you stand up, you speak truth, and you get attacked by those on the left. And this being a trade union very much on the left. And sadly, it shows that in Britain, our education system has been captured, or teachers' unions have been captured by a far left ideology that hates and despises patriotism, pride of your nation, and any understanding or resemblance of Christian faith and what that means for society. So it's kind of what we see time and time again. You're facing that there in the US. We are facing it here. And this is just one of probably many unions that will try and attack Nigel and reform and try and promote their woke ideology.
Yeah. And of course, we here in the United States are dealing with the same thing. Our teachers' unions are so woke. They're so out of touch with everyday Americans. It's hard to fathom. We have very little time, Peter, and so many things I want to talk to you about. Tesla sales plunging across Europe as Elon gets associated with more conservative-leaning politics. Rolls-Royce now planning to shift its production to the United States to avoid Trump's tariffs. That's interesting. But I've got to ask you about this in the little bit of time that we have left, Peter. Weird conversation involving Trump and King Charles and your prime minister about the possibility of the United States joining the Commonwealth. I think a lot of people just figured everybody was being trolled here, that Trump and the king were like trolling people. What do you think? Is this serious? I mean, is there a serious discussion about the United States joining the Commonwealth and I guess submitting to King Charles as our king?
Well, into this, I'm kind of jealous of Canada. The Canada are being posted as me the 51st state. I would rather Britain could actually grab that and we could be welcomed in. So and visit the UK instead of Greenland, but that to the side. I read it, and it's a perplexing story of how this is pushed. We have the Commonwealth, which is a remnant, I guess, of the British Empire, and has generally worked for a free trade within that, and the passing of ideas, and it's a ceremonial rule, really, kind of to, I guess, to mirror me what the British Empire was. And this is a ceremony where the heads of state come together and they have dinner every so often and talk about culture and enrichment together. That's really what it boils down to. Now, the weird thing is Nigel Farage, and I saw Alex Jones mocking Nigel over the weekend. I thought, this is weird. Alex was mocking Nigel because Nigel set up the American sector or the American part of the British Commonwealth Society. So Nigel actually is leading that. I guess Nigel's used that as a vehicle maybe into the US. I don't think Nigel Farage was suggesting that America become part of the Commonwealth. I can't imagine that the King or Keir Starmer was suggesting that. So I think it's the media doing overtime and just throwing a spanner into the works. It's never before been discussed. It's never before been on the agenda. And I would love, if times were different, for America to come back to the motherland, come back to us. But actually, you seem to be doing much better than we are doing. So I think really it's the other way around. Maybe you can welcome us in as the 51st state.
Yeah, it's so funny, dude, that we're even talking about this. I thought this was settled in 1812. The Brits burned our White House, and that was the end of that. But hey, weirder things have happened. Peter, you do so much good work. Heartsofoak.org is where people can find your excellent podcast. Also over at Bannon's War Room. How else can people follow you? I know you're on X. Tell the folks what's the best way to follow your very important work.
Best way as well on X at Hearts of Oak UK, and everywhere else is at Hearts of Oak. If you're on Truth, if you're on Telegram, if you're on Getter, Parler, we stream every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. 2 guest interviews a week and 1 news review a week. And Alex, I had the privilege of having you on many times, and you were with me, I think, a couple of weeks ago. And it's always great to connect with you, the work you're doing. And thank you for having me on and be able to share with your audience a little bit of what is happening in the UK with the US flavor, because I think there are strong connections, strong links between both our countries. And what happens with President Trump in the White House will impact Europe. And I think it can have a positive impact, not only in the UK, but across Europe. So thanks for having me on, Alex.
Absolutely. It's an honor and a privilege. Thank you very much, Peter. We will hopefully talk to you again very soon. And until then, God bless.
Thank you, and God bless.
All righty, folks, we are out of time for today here on the Sentinel Report. Do check out the Hearts of Oak podcast. If you're not listening to that yet, you should. Yeah, it's on the other side of the ocean, but folks, it's really, really insightful. And he does cover a lot of U.S. topics as well. So go check that out. I want to thank you for tuning in. Get over to our website, libertysentinel.org, libertysentinel.org, whether you're watching us on BEK cable, whether you're hearing us on AM, FM radio, whether we're on your Lindale TV or Taken or any of the places that air us. We hope that you will get over to our website, sign up for our newsletter. You're going to get all of our stuff twice a week, absolutely free, libertysentinel.org. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Alex Newman, your host here on the Sentinel Report. Until next time, God bless you all.